So, hi, I'm Eugene Theron. I'm a South African landscape and nature photographer. So I live in North Wales in the UK. Most of my photography at the moment is taken in Snowdonia National Park and the surrounding areas such as Anglesey and the woodlands and valleys and mountains of North Wales. I mean, it's a pretty beautiful place and pretty easy to get inspired there. So. But we're filming this video in the Isle of Harris, and that's another big part of my life in photography, is traveling and exploring new places and seeing what they have to offer. And after spending 5 days here, I've discovered a place I really like and really love, and I'm already planning on coming back to. And I think that's a big part of my photography, is being able to go to new places and experience them and tell the stories about those places with the camera. Be it from the scenes on the beaches here in Lost Kintyre and Seal Bost, where we're staying, or if it's in the mountains on the other side of Harris. It's all part of the story. Or even for that matter, looking at the ground and taking some abstract scenes of the patterns in the sand. And it's all part of nature for me, and it's all part of photography or landscape photography for me. So I enjoy making all types of images. I've always had a camera throughout my life. My father and my grandfather were both keen photographers back in the day. So I've always had a camera, being at a point and shoot or something more complex. But I remember clearly asking a friend of mine, she's a family and portrait photographer, to teach me how to use a camera more technically. I think it was probably back in about 2003 or 2004. And we went off to Noordhoek Lighthouse in Cape Town, in South Africa, to take photos at sunset, or closer to sunset. And I remember very clearly what the photo looked like. It was the lighthouse, and had some round boulders in the foreground that were sort of out of focus, probably because I shot it at 1.8, not f11, or what we use in landscape photography to get sharp images. She still has the copy of the photo, so I've only ever seen it once, but it does bring it back a good memory. And I think there was always a part of me that wanted to start doing something more to do with the landscape and more to do with nature, rather than just sort of walking around with a point and shoot camera. So that photo holds a pretty special place. I think there's so much of nature that I find inspiring. I have a background in natural sciences, more specifically geology, oceanography and geophysics. And I think especially the geological side of that really inspires a lot of the images I take in nature. I think it's more easy to see in my photography up in the mountains. I'm focusing a lot on things like glacial erratics, structures in the rock, cracks in the rock, the way the mountains are formed, layers, for argument's sake. And they're all things that I know and appreciate from the geological side, and then I try to put forward in my photography. But saying that, down on the beaches, even in nature, I look for structure. I love the structure that's in nature, that can be created by shapes, sand patterns, for argument's sake, cracks in the rock again. So seeing those things in the landscape really makes me feel inspired at how the natural world was made and how it's all been put together. I think we go out into the landscape and we look at things and we see their beauty, but we don't always appreciate what's behind their beauty. The geological forces that sort of came together and thrust the mountains up into the air, or the waves coming at the coast and eroding the landscape into what it looks like today. And there's so much evidence of it out there. And I think, certainly for me, it's very important to incorporate that into my photography, so I can showcase that to people who are looking at it, the viewer. There's a feeling I get when I'm out in the landscape and I see these structures and I see these features and the sand patterns and the rocks and everything, that there is something pretty powerful at hand that's created these. And I'm not talking about in a spiritual or religious sense. I'm talking about in a natural sense, that the natural world and the processes that have gone on in this natural world have created this. And all we are is just one small speck standing in the landscape with a camera, isolating one tiny little part of the grand landscape that's going on around us, and fitting it between 8,000 pixels by 5,000 pixels or whatever your camera ratio is. You're fitting it into that tiny space, and whether you're printing it or sharing it online, however you want to present that is just a tiny moment in time, in geological time or in the history of the world, or however you want to look at it. And if we go out and we've been going out onto the beaches here in Harris for the last week, and you see time there as well. It changes in the space of a week. Every time the tide comes in, every time the tide goes out, there's a different sand pattern in the beach, or there's been wind, and we as photographers or humans are pretty much powerless to change that. So there's a lot of play in the world, and being able to capture that on the camera, to me, is pretty special. Seeing the landscape firsthand is obviously one of the primary reasons I love to go out. I love being outdoors, I love being outside. But it's a sense of exploration that keeps me going in photography, going to new places. The potential for seeing new images or compositions, the potential for making something new. I think the main reason I do photography is I love to create. I love to create images, I love to create an art piece. But it's that sense of creation and the sense of exploration that keep me going out to go and discover, whether it's discovering new places and discovering something within that new place that I go to, or even discovering something in a place I've been to 1,000 times. It's the sense of discovery and the sense, and putting myself out there in different weathers and different lights and different times of the year to see what is there, to see what is physically out there, and what I can create.